Good afternoon, and thank you for watching this recorded webinar reviewing the Teaching Strategies Gold OSEP Administrator Getting Started Checklist. This webinar accompanies a series of pre-recorded OSEP webinars that can be located in the Early Childhood Classroom Supports Library. Additionally, you can access the PDF document titled LDOE TS Gold OSEP Guidance and Support, as that document will accompany the information shared within each webinar. During this webinar, we will provide detailed information for OSEP administrators to ensure your program license is up to date and ready for the upcoming school year. I am joined by my colleague from Teaching Strategies, Drew Senkar, who will be walking us through live demonstrations of the agenda items listed here. This will include reviewing creating your account, transferring and archiving children, disabling users, creating and adding additional users, setting up classes for new case managers, and creating child records. It's important to make sure that you are logged into your OSEP administrator account by clicking on your initials in the top right of the screen. Once you are logged in, you are ready to manage your existing account. In order to transfer children who move to a new school system, OSEP administrators must take the following steps. First, notify the new school system OSEP administrator that the child has moved. This should be done over the phone so that you do not share PII over email. Next, email brittany.braun@la.gov requesting that the child's TS Gold OSEP record be transferred to the new school system. Use the exact verbiage highlighted on the slide in your email. Once the transfer is complete, both the sending and receiving school systems will receive an email noting that the requested transfer has been complete. The OSEP administrator will need to move the child to the appropriate teacher's class. Children should be archived only if they have moved out of your school system over the summer and you are unsure of where to transfer the child. Additionally, a child should be archived after LDOE runs the federally mandated year-end report. LDOE will notify OSEP administrators when it is okay to archive children that have been exited from the OSEP license. A TS Gold record should never be deleted unless authorized by LDOE. Administrators should archive users who are no longer working in your program. Administrators will need to remove and relocate any children previously assigned to the user by transferring the children to the current case manager's class or the OSEP default class until you are ready to assign the child to a new case manager. If a user has resigned or retired, follow the instructions linked on the slide. Finally, in order to maintain records of professional development certification in anticipation of a user returning or transitioning to another school system, users should never be deleted, only disabled. Now we will hand it over to Drew, who is going to walk us through a demo on the dashboard.
Thanks, Britt. So here we are logged in as a user into Gold. And as Britt noted, in order to get to the space we need to, as an administrator, we're going to click on our initials in the upper right-hand corner here, and then click on administration. In order to manage our account in preparation for an upcoming year, the first thing we want to do is make sure that we have cleaned up the previous year. So we'll be taking actions like archiving children and disabling users. First thing we're going to do is archive children. From this menu, you can choose by site or throughout an entire program. Because I have access across, I'm being particular. And when this page loads here, we'll see that we do have a child in here. We can click on them one by one if we so desire, and we can archive the children from the left here. We also have the ability to bulk edit children from here, and we can go to programs and again site levels if we want to decide the grouping of actions that would be taken In this instance, we're going to be archiving these children. I have one child in this row, so I can simply click them. If I wanted to do all children, I could click from the header up here and then click Archive on the left-hand side. It will review the children, and then I'll receive a message here that those children have been successfully archived. When it comes to users, we click on Users from the gray sub-navigation menu here. We again select the location. We have our list of users to choose from. In order to disable a user, again, we want to disable them and not delete them. We can click on their name. And then this brings up their profile. And as we scroll down near the bottom, we have a disable user box. We click on that and then enter a password, because as an administrator, there's a safeguard in place to ensure actions are not taken erroneously. You can see here, user was updated, and it again takes us back to this page that user has disappeared. And that's all for now. I'll turn it back over to Britt.
Great, thanks, Drew. Now we will move into additional action items for setting up your account. OSEP administrators can add additional administrators to the license if appropriate. For security purposes, be sure to use a unique email address for each new user. Any standard administrator can add teachers to the OSEP license. Any provider or specialist that is responsible for finalizing the assessment of a child should be set up as a teacher type user. All users should be entered using the following naming convention: firstname.lastname.osep. If you receive an error while creating the username, please email brittany.braun@la.gov, as a user may have been entered in another Louisiana school system and their account just may need to be transferred over. Setting up classes for new case managers should only be completed by the OSEP administrators. In the OSEP license, a class will potentially include a user's whole caseload, not just a group of children at one school or another. Administrators can determine the appropriate role to assign each teacher, including primary teacher, co-teacher, assistant teacher, or team member. The folder holder or case manager is the primary teacher. Related service providers who are not the case managers should be assigned as either co-teachers or with team member access, depending on the level of access you want them to have. Multiple providers can be linked through the team member feature. Creating child records should be completed by the OSEP administrator. You can follow the directions linked on the slide for any children who are new to your system. When new child records are created, it is important to note the following criteria that is required for input. First, both the child's LSID and Gold ID should be entered into the profile. Second, every child entered into the OSEP license should have IEP checked. Dimensions 1C1 and 1C4 through 1C4 will not show up unless the IEP is checked, and therefore final checkpoint ratings will not be complete until this step occurs. Next, the first day in the program should reflect the day the child begins receiving Part B services. And finally, the primary disability should be entered under the custom question dropdown. I am going to turn it back to Drew, who is going to walk us through some of those features in the OSEP license.
Thanks, Britt. I'll again share my screen. So you can see we're back to the dashboard page here again to be taking these actions we need to be in the administration space. So just a quick review, we'll click on our initials in the upper right-hand corner here, and then click administration from the dropdown. The first thing we're going to do is create a user. So from the gray sub-navigation bar here, we will click on Users, and then we simply click Add on the left-hand side. We want this user to be of the teacher type, so we can leave that alone. We select their location. We need an email address associated with them. We need to select a username for them. As Britt mentioned, it should be first.last.osep. And to create this user, I need to enter my password. Great, we've created a user. Now we're going to create a class. We click on Classes from the gray sub-navigation. Determine where we want this class to live. We'll assign it to our new user. When it loads those classes, you'll find that there are none. We're going to click Add from the left-hand side here. Again, indicating where. It's important that you create your users before you create your classes, because the list of available teachers only will populate with those that exist. And lastly, I'm going to add a child. As Britt mentioned, we want this first day in program field to match this IEP field down here. You can see it has defaulted to the same, but that's something, an item that you'll want to check. You'll also see the two fields here that Britt has previously identified for the LACID and the gold ID provided for the child in the main EC license. We need to ensure that IEP is labeled as yes here, and that this date reflects the date in which the child is beginning to receive services, and that it matches the first date and program listed above. And lastly, the custom question. And now we have created all three. I'll turn it back over to Britt.
Thanks, Drew. The following key resources were developed to support OSEP administrators. The TS Gold OSEP Administrator Contact List provides an updated list of all current OSEP administrators to support communication of transfer requests. If there are updates to your OSEP administrator, please contact brittany.braun@la.gov. The additional resources can be found on the Early Childhood Classroom Supports Library. It is recommended that OSEP administrators review the updated OSEP webinars for additional information and live demonstrations regarding getting started, managing and monitoring the license. For any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Brittany Braun.